You're listening to Heritage Radio Network. HRN is food radio supported by you. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org.
This episode is brought to you by Roberta's, home of Heritage Radio Network. Roberta's was founded in Bushwick in 2008 and has become one of the most iconic restaurants in the country. HRN made its home inside of Roberta's in 2009, and together they have become part of the DIY fabric of the neighborhood. Roberta's is open for lunch and dinner 7 days a week and serves much more than just the famous wood-fired pizzas. Their team dreams up new salads, pastas, and sandwiches on the regular. Roberta's Tiki Bar is alive and well in the back garden, serving up frozen drinks in the summer and hot toddies in the winter. Stop by the bakery and takeout spot next door for fresh breads, sticky buns, and pizzas to go. But Roberta's also extends beyond Bushwick, with multiple locations in New York City, Long Island, and Los Angeles. You can also find their frozen pies in grocery stores around the country. The spirit of Roberta's, like Heritage Radio Network, is everywhere. Here's to many more years of pizza-powered radio. Learn more about Roberta's at robertaspizza.com.
I'm Peter Reinhardt. Welcome to Pizza Quest. I'm at the International Pizza Expo in Las Vegas, 2023. I'm sitting with Jason Rosenthal, who we're meeting for the first time really here at the show. I met you last night for the first time, Jason, but your place is in New Jersey, close to my heart. I'm from Philly, and you're at Brick and Dough in New Jersey, which I've been told is really doing some special stuff.
Yeah.
And I really want to hear about that. But in addition to that, I'm just finding out as we're talking right now with your business partner, Ian, you've also launched a whole line of gluten-free pizza doughs too. So we want to talk about all that.
Yeah.
So let's tell us the whole story of Brick and Dough and how you got to be where you are.
Yeah, so thank you, first of all. Nice meeting you.
It's great meeting you. Yeah, it's been great. It was fun last night talking with you, too.
Yeah, it was, definitely.
We went to a Women in Pizza event last night. Yeah.
Lots of fun. So, just to give you the little background on Brick and Dough and myself, my name's Jason Rosenthal. I started this about 4 years ago now, right before COVID, in September 19th.
Great timing, right?
Yeah, it was. I came from the insurance industry.
Wow.
I didn't go to college. I was never a student. So out of high school, I knew I had to figure out a different path. My dad had an insurance agency, so I decided to just go get licensed and start that route and try to build myself up that way. So I was selling life insurance, employee benefits to big corporations, and doing that for 6-7 years.
Yeah.
Was never happy. Hated
it probably
the
paid the bills, but it wasn't what you wanted to do.
Exactly,
Yeah.
at a young age too.
Yeah.
Like I was doing okay young, but I was never waking up excited to go to work, and it wasn't fulfilling for me.
I understand.
So I had a lot of hobbies at home, from like videography, drone flying I was doing, and then pizza was always something in my corner, cooking especially. I grew up cooking at home from a very young age, and when the home pizza revolution really started, and like Uni came out with one of their first ovens, I bought that thing, and
that was a revelation to a lot of people. That little
really
mini
was.
That one in the rock box just changed the game.
Yeah, it just gave you the ability to cook at a high temperature
Now,
at home.
when you said growing up, where were you growing up?
I grew up in Franklin Lakes, New Jersey, and then kind of at this point, fast forward 26, 27 years when I'm that age, I'm living in Montclair, New Jersey at the time.
It seems like there's a lot going on in Montclair.
There is. I mean, Montclair is definitely I would say the biggest food town in New Jersey.
Is it? Yeah.
It's a New York City commuter town.
What's the bakery there that does donuts?
It was called Montclair Bread Co. It's now called Rabble Rise Donuts.
We had the woman who's the head baker there.
Yeah, Rachel.
Rachel.
Yes.
She was on last year. We had her
nice.
In Atlantic City. We interviewed her, so we've run her episode already.
Okay,
on
so not the
Pizza
first Montclair person on.
No, but it started making me think Montclair. There's something going on in Montclair.
Yeah,
What's in the water there?
Good bread, good dough, a lot of good, especially during COVID, you had a lot of successful chefs and restaurateurs who moved from New York to open in Montclair.
Yeah.
And it's connected. You have 5 train stops that go right to Penn Station. So it's a cool little
hop, step,
town
and a
like
jump
that.
over to the city, yeah.
But in September 19, this all started in a town called Union City, New Jersey. At the time where I said to myself, all right, it's either time to stay in your career and be unhappy your whole life and figure that out, or take a risk and try something new.
You were at the crossroads.
I was. Yeah. So I had figured the dough out, which was my main thing. I'm like, I know I figured dough out. I was making it at home for a year, having it in a bedroom that was air conditioned at different temperatures to see how that worked. and I decided to go after a little spot. So I found a tiny existing pizzeria in Union City, right on the border of Weehawken, across from New York. It was about 800 square feet. The guy had just failed. I came in there and brought in a new custom wood-fired oven that was built in Orlando. Did minimal work just to paint it, make it look nice, and tried opening up.
Started making pizzas.
Yeah, I knew I had to get people in the door because I was no one. I'm not a chef with a name. I'm not someone with a history. So I knew I had to come up with a cool name, build a brand, start posting cool pictures online, and get people's eyes on the business before I even made food, to bring them in. And then I knew once I had them in the door, I'll retain them with the food.
You knew that the food was good.
I needed them there at
So
first.
brick and dough was like the hook.
Brick and dough was the hook. We built out a brand. I paid to have a brand design before I even knew I was going to make this work, because I knew that, like I said, we just needed customers at first.
That's it. So it's kind of one of those things, if you see it, you can believe it, you can be it.
That's kind of how and I was confident in my pizza. And
That's
I think
good. That's
it
cool.
all starts with confidence. Confidence and ego are a different thing, and I was definitely confident.
But you knew you had it within you, then now you had to prove it in the real world.
Yes, and there was still a lot of failure in that space. I mean, I was by myself. I had a dishwasher, 12 seats. So I rung you up. I took your order. I stretched. I cooked. I cleaned.
You were a one-man
I did
band.
everything. Yeah, and we luckily had 5-6 months to open under our belt before March 2020.
Before the pandemic
COVID
hit.
hits, where obviously a lot of pizzerias, if you knew how to adapted, and were very successful with takeout. I got sick within that first week, so
I got
sick. I actually lost my sense of taste and smell for 5 months. So it was gone. I couldn't taste, couldn't smell a thing. So that was
This is amazing.
a real
This is like a
knock.
death and resurrection story.
It was bad, but I needed to stay positive. I took the reputation we built in that time and said, all right, how are we going to grow from there? So I adapted. Once I got better, I decided to close that location. I bought a mobile pizza oven and said, all right, people aren't going to be going to restaurants right now, so I might as well bring the restaurant to them.
Did you take that oven from the restaurant?
I did, yeah. We kept that. I mean, we kept the space. So rent was very cheap. We kept the space open. We just weren't using it as a storefront. It was more of our commercial prep space at that point.
Okay.
So everything was still there, but we just focused on the at-home catering for a few months.
So a lot of people saved their business that way.
They did, and I think the narrative during COVID was the failure and the people who didn't succeed, and it was a very sad time. But there are a lot of people who did figure it out and used COVID as a advantage to kind of grow and build upon and adapt. And we luckily were able to do that. And
the word pivot became like the cliche of the moment.
Yeah, it's true. We had to pivot in every single direction. But with the mobile oven and closing that location, we started looking for our next spot, and we luckily found a spot in Montclair that was tied to an existing bakery that we originally partnered up with and then bought out and expanded. And now we're, I guess, 3.5, 4 years in since we first opened, and we have a 3,000 square foot building in Montclair with about 90 seats inside, 2 ovens, a big outdoor space. We do tons of private events and catering.
What kind of pizzas are you making there?
So our style is Neapolitan-esque, right? But
we said in the last episode, I was just talking with Giuliano Adriani, and we said we used the term Neapolitan-ish.
Yeah, and that's it. It's definitely Neapolitan-ish. Because we follow a lot of the aspects of Neapolitan. We're using an Italian imported flour, but that's really where I draw the line, right? Like, I don't come from this industry, so I'm able to look at things without those blinders on that you kind of are told, like, these are the rules of what you need to follow, right? The only rule I follow is my rule of making the best possible product
I call it the flavor rule.
Right.
The flavor rules.
Right, so there wasn't a set amount of time I needed to bake at, a set temperature I needed to bake at. It was just a lot of trial and error until we got to our product where I said, this is our product. I'm not the person who's going to be buying different flour every week and trying to mess around with our dough. Like, once our dough is our dough, I'm not playing with it anymore.
You found the sweet spot for yourself.
We have our sweet spot. The dough is the base, and now we play around with toppings. We're the ones who do unique things on top of the
that's
pie.
part of your image and your uniqueness is the toppings.
Yeah, but Neapolitan would be more like, closer to 1,000 degrees, 60 seconds. We're closer to 990 seconds.
So you're still baking sort of in the Neapolitan style,
absolutely,
the Naples style.
Open flame, it's super hot, but we get a little darker crust, which allows it to crisp up a little and allows that base to hold up a little more.
You have
so
any
it's
photos
less flop.
on your phone that we can look at while we're talking?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's kind of so now I'm getting a sense of what you're doing there.
I mean, I'm
I'm looking at a picture of a beautiful Neapolitan-ish pizza. It looks like a Neapolitan pizza. It's got a big puffy cornicione around it. Tell me about what I'm seeing in the center of that.
Yeah,
Some beautiful
this is a
design.
Something like this is what we're known for. This is called the beef. So
The
this
beef.
was 9-hour braised short rib with banana peppers, smoked mozzarella, and we finished it with a chive aioli when it came out of the oven.
It's a white pizza. I don't see any red on there.
I am a huge white pizza fan. I do
Me
not
too.
like
I love it.
sauce.
I love both,
I'll
but
eat it,
yeah.
but I gravitate towards the pies.
I like them both,
red sauce.
but lately you're going through phases. Right now I'm in a white pizza phase.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's time and place for everything. I mean, I crave that margarita every once in a while.
Yeah.
But typically, it's the pizzas that don't typically work as pizza. That's what I go towards. The other one that I wanted to show you. This is our most recent special. This is an egg roll pizza.
An egg roll pizza.
So I was out to dinner one night, bought a regular egg roll, took a bite. Just like, that's a flavor I would love to put on pizza. So we took shredded cabbage, shredded carrot, and I zested ginger all over that and just massaged it.
Wow.
Threw that on the pie raw with a little bit of shredded mozz, baked that. When it came out, we hit it with sweet Thai chili sauce, crispy fried wonton, and fresh
So it's really
scallion.
an Asian flavored
Absolutely.
pizza.
I look at pizza as a blank canvas.
Exactly.
That's what it is. You
It
stretch your dough,
sound
you
like,
can put anything
in talking
on
about
top.
it, you sound a lot like someone we talked about in another episode named Ed Ledoux.
Okay.
Have you heard of Ed Ledoux?
I have not, no.
Ed Ledoux was the first pizza maker for Wolfgang Puck at Spago. He's the one that brought what's now known as sort of the California pizza style into vogue by making two different pizzas every night at Spago. That became a destination thing, and nobody thought of Spago as a pizza restaurant until they started making pizzas there. It was a fine dining restaurant, but it changed the whole game. This is 1980.
Oh, wow.
Now, and Alice Waters was doing something similar in Berkeley at Chez Panisse, but it was more traditional. But Ed Ledoux was saying, thinking like you, out of the box, what can I do? Because pizza it doesn't have to be Italian flavor, it can be international. What can I do? And so every night he was creating something new. Eventually he did the first menu design for the California Pizza Kitchen concept.
Gotcha.
And then he had his own pizzeria in LA called Coyote, not Cafe, but Coyote Cafe Pizza. And then sadly he died at a young age. So people who know about him know that he's the guy that kind of got this going. So in terms of tracing the lineage of style that you're doing, you can say, I'm kind of in the Ed Ledoux mode, you know. You can drop that into a conversation.
Yeah, no, it's nice to be able to see other people that are thinking
that
the same
pizza
way
reminds
we
me of the
think.
way Ed thought.
Gotcha.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah, and this is what we do. I mean, we have our set menu of 12 to 15 pies that never change.
Yeah.
Seasonally they change. We have like 8 that will never change, like margarita, pepperoni, vodka style.
Yeah.
But then it's seasonal and it's daily for us. If we have a thought, I wake up in the morning, I'll shop for it and we'll run it that night.
And did you mention that what kind of flour you're using for your grits?
Yeah, we use Caputo Super
flour.
Nuvola, the pink
everyone
bag.
likes that Super Nuvola.
Yeah, it just
It's
gives
not
us that really nice crust.
The
It's
original
strong.
00 like red
It's
or blue.
not. No,
yeah.
we were using the blue bag when I first opened,
Yeah.
and then as I formed my relationship with them and just tried out other things, I found that with my process I developed, which is a direct fermentation, fresh yeast process, that flour worked best for me.
How do you said you bake this in about 90 seconds.
Yeah.
But are you able to hold some of the crisp snap in that crust using this flour?
Yeah, so obviously this pizza still, I would say, is best enjoyed out of the oven within the first few minutes, right? Like, it's uncomfortable anytime we have to box this, but
I know.
we're not going to turn down
I feel
that business.
Yeah.
But yes, right when this comes out, you do get five good minutes of a nice crisp. No flop, which Neapolitan
no flop. Well,
typically flops. So
that's the trick. Yeah.
that was the biggest thing for me. I wanted a Neapolitan pizza without flop.
And I
just knew you had to drop the temp a little.
Exactly, and a lot of pizzerias that really go for the more crisp, the same style but more crisp, will bake it in 4.5 to 5 minutes at about 600 degrees instead.
Right.
But so that's the range that.
And ours might take a little more labor. You know, that final 10 seconds is a lot off the floor, touching the flame, away from the flame, up to the ceiling.
Now, do you enter your pizzas in the competitions here?
I don't.
Because this could be like in the non-traditional category.
Yeah, I would love to do it one day. This is my first time at Expo this
your
year.
first time?
Orlando Foods asked me to come cook
That's
for an
fantastic.
hour.
So you're working in their booth.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, you'll watch the competition and you'll think to yourself, I can win that damn thing next year.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
I would love that.
Well, that's how a lot of these folks have gotten their sponsorship deals and have grown their companies. Is it's another way of leveraging your brand.
That's cool.
So introduce us to Ian here.
Yeah, so sitting next to me is my partner in a gluten-free business that we started called Real Fine Foods. So I developed a gluten-free crust at Brick and Dough that we were selling just at the restaurant, and caught waves within the gluten-free community and locally. And I realized the gluten-free community is a very small community. There's a few Facebook
but it's a very
groups.
vocal and
Exactly.
important community.
Exactly. They're very tight-knit. At this point, we have people traveling an hour and a half, 2 hours every week to come get our pizza that
No
we make.
kidding.
Yeah. So,
well, what is it about your pizza that differentiates us from other gluten-frees?
I put a lot of time into this recipe. It's not a unique flour.
I know I can't ask you to give proprietary secrets.
No,
but
and I can't do that. And
We just met you, Peter.
right.
But the general idea of it,
The one thing that is proprietary here is the process. We're using Caputo's gluten-free flour.
Oh, they have their own blend.
Yeah, they've developed a phenomenal blend that a lot of people are using, but the process I developed to work with this, I think, is what makes this unique. It's a very high hydrated dough that holds up. It's Sicilian style.
I'm looking at it for the
Sicilian
listeners. I'm looking at it. It's a rectangular square pizza, about 3/4 of an inch or so thick.
Yep.
And it has almost a sponge like. It looks like it's still cold, but it feels like it'd be nice and soft and spongy.
Yeah. So as it firms back up, it gets nice and it feels dense and firm. But once it heats up again, it loosens up and
then there's the bottom
up.
like really crisp up.
Yeah, and if you're in the proper deck oven at the proper temperature, the bottom crisps up. It's a really awesome product. So Ian was a customer of Brick and Dough. Him and his family had eaten the pizza a ton. We became friendly that way, and he just came to me one day and said,
"Were you
"Listen,
already doing this then when you met Ian?
We were doing it in a different size."
And Ian, are you gluten sensitive yourself?
No, I'm not.
So you just like the taste of it.
I moved to Montclair during the pandemic. I lived in the city. I worked in the entertainment industry for a handful of different businesses, from arena development to really fast-growing CPG companies like Liquid Death. And I've always had a strong desire to be an entrepreneur. And I used to take the train from the city to Montclair, and I would stop at Brick and Dough on the way home to grab a slice, and I didn't want a full Neapolitan pizza, so I'd grab one of his gluten-free pizzas, and look, where my head went is it's a little bit healthier, it's a little bit lighter, but I can have a little slice of pizza on my walk home and not be super full.
Were you selling these as squares then, not as a whole pie?
So when we first opened that location in Montclair, I told you I partnered with an existing bakery.
Oh, yeah.
So we kind of were running somewhat of a slice shop. Because we were open at 8 in the morning. So come lunch, we would put up, certain slices, certain breads, certain things that you can buy instead of having to take a full pie. So yes, the gluten-free we debuted as slices only, which made us super unique.
Yeah.
Because yes, you can get gluten-free pizza other places, but we were really the only place you can go buy just a single slice.
Yeah, that
right?
was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I wasn't, to answer your question, I wasn't I'm not intolerant to gluten at all, and I actually love his Neapolitan style pizza, but through my relationships in hospitality, I'd ask all these major hospitality companies, what's the next wave? What are the things that you're what's the biggest concern to you? And they're like, well, there's obviously a huge trend in food allergies, and everyone is looking for a gluten-free product, and none of them there's a big disconnect between the flavor and the quality of the gluten-free product and what was in the market. And so I'll get into the details a little bit more, but we're really good friends with the owners of Prince Street Pizza.
Oh, yes.
And I was talking to him in particular, which is I think they're the highest grossing pizza shop in New York.
Is it really? I know it's famous.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane. You go any time of day, there's a line out the door.
Incredible.
And I was asking the owners, hey, what's your appetite for gluten-free dough? And they're like, we're dying to have one on our menu. We haven't found one up to our quality standards. I was like, all right, why don't you guys come out for a tasting? And I was working other jobs at this time too. I was like, why don't you guys come out for a tasting? We'll host you at Brick and Dough. They're like, all right. They come out, and
it's amazing you could get their attention like that.
They take one bite of the pizza, and they're like, we want this on our menu tomorrow.
Wow.
And we're like, all right, that's the inception of the business.
That was the easiest pitch you ever made?
Yeah, that was the inception of the business. They have become silent partners in our business as well. So we are the exclusive gluten-free dough provider for all of their locations.
Wow.
And they're in the midst of massive expansion. Since we met them, they had 3 locations, New York, LA, Miami. Now they have, I think, 8 locations and 3 or 4 ghost kitchens.
Wow.
That's been 9 months.
They're growing exponentially, and all their stores are super, super successful. And so I took my relationships in the entertainment space and was started reaching out to my friends in the hospitality world. First call was Yankee Stadium, actually. Yankee Stadium was like, hey, we've been dying for a gluten-free product. We have so many of our season ticket members have a gluten allergy, or even just from a health perspective, asking for a gluten-free product. But we have a big concern about cross-contamination in our ovens. So I was like, hey, come and taste our product. They fell in love with our product, and in fact, they converted their entire pizza offering. And I think I'm giving away a secret here. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to talk about this in the press.
Well, nobody's listening. We can just.
Peter, we might have to cut this. But Yankee Stadium actually converted their entire pizza offering to be our gluten-free dough.
No kidding! Wow, that's huge.
So
the baseball season starts this week.
we launched with them last season. So the Real Fine Foods is only like 7 months old. Yeah. 8 months old.
How do you keep up with the demand? Now you've got these big accounts. How do you produce so much?
So we started the business out of we converted half of Brick and Dough's kitchen to be our gluten-free dough manufacturing. So we pulled some of his staff to go to be Real Fine Food employees. And we got, we invested in proofers and ovens and big
How do you
mixers.
protect from cross-contamination there? Is it dedicated?
Yeah, so we had to register as an FDA-certified gluten-free facility. And going down that path and learning about that process, I think our initial thought was that, to produce a gluten-free product, that facility had to be only gluten-free.
Yes.
It's not. There's different levels to it, and there is a level that, as long as you have the proper cleaning practices in place, you're allowed to produce.
I see. And as long as you can keep to minimize the
The doughs are mixed in different rooms. So Brick and Dough has a dedicated gluten dough room, and our gluten-free dough is actually made in the kitchen, which is predominantly gluten-free.
Yeah, at this point, our breadcrumb, our meatballs are all gluten-free.
I see.
Our fryer's going to become gluten-free soon.
Wow.
But yeah, we mix our regular Neapolitan-ish dough in a temperature-controlled insulated dough room that we designed.
So who would have thought this little niche that you thought you had was going to blow up and become this big part of your business?
You know what? I think a lot of people are trying to do it, and I'm not going to say that we've developed the best crust in the world. I'm sure other people are figuring it out. But when you have someone on the other side, like Ian on the business side of it, who can then take this and get it out there, that's the hard part.
Well, look, only 10% of a business is the product. 90% is the marketing.
Yep.
Sure. Well, look, to be honest, the marketing has been the quality and the taste.
Yes.
We haven't
sells
really,
itself.
Yeah. To answer your question, you were saying how do we keep up with demand, or how do we keep up with production? Well, it's actually funny because on the quality of the product alone, we have pretty much reached our capacity out of Brick and Dough. So we've been in the process, and why we're actually here is we're interviewing a bunch of co-packers and big manufacturing facilities who are really inspired by our product, love our product, and are really impressed by the clientele we've been able to build in such a short amount of time that we actually have a couple bidders vying for our business.
That's nice.
So we're here to interview a bunch of different co-packers, taste the products that they manufacture for us.
Have you talked to the Udi's folks in Denver, Colorado? They're dedicated gluten free.
Yeah,
is that a secret? Or
we're trying to take Udi's out.
But because they could also co-pack for you, couldn't they?
No.
No?
I believe Udi's
they want their name on it.
Yeah.
So you don't want to show it to them then? Okay.
No, we're in the process of seeing if it makes sense to go to a co-packer for white label or to potentially invest and build our own facility and do it ourselves.
Yeah, because I know that there are now some other places that I know of. Just I'm throwing out ideas you've probably thought of, but I've seen the Whole Foods gluten-free facility in Durham, North Carolina, and it's a dedicated facility, so you wouldn't have any issues with cross-contamination. And again, they could probably do contract baking for you.
Interesting.
Yeah, so we've talked to a couple commissary kitchens, different to your point, grocery chains that have dedicated gluten-free facilities. They're all in the running, so I wouldn't want to say that they're out. But
so you're in the mode now where you're looking at all your options and going to up for bid.
Yeah, our demand has completely outweighed our production, so it's a fantastic place to be in a business that we now. We need to find someone who's going to be able to keep up with our with our demand
and keep and meet your standards.
You want to keep costs down. That's why we're doing it out of the restaurant. But
how nice
now
to
it's
have
impeding on my operation.
To have a bidding war, though, you can get those prices down. At least you can.
That's what we're working on.
See, you brought in the right business partner for this thing.
That was the goal. That was the goal.
So you keep this part of your business separate from.
I do, yeah. So Real Fine Foods and Brick and Dough are two separate businesses.
Do you have other partners in Brick and Dough, or are you a sole proprietor?
I'm the sole owner of Brick and Dough. Yeah, I'm trying to keep it that way. As you grow, obviously, it could be strategic to bring on people, but I've I've prided myself on surrounding myself with people that are better than me, as in my employees. Hiring a general manager way more experienced than me.
Get good people in there.
We recently hired a chef. His name's Chris Peterwitz, who is 26 years old, but is so experienced. He's the one who graduated Johnson & Wales. Yeah,
where I teach. I love hearing success stories from Johnson & Wales.
So he's worked in some pretty high-end kitchens in New Jersey for some big-time chefs, and he actually had most recently worked at Raza for a year. He learned how to make pizza there under Dan Riker.
Raza, which is the golden boy right now of pizzerias.
Right.
Yeah,
so once we had kept in touch for a while, he learned everything there, and then once he was ready to move on, come to an operation where he had a little bit more control over creativity, I was ready to pass that side on. Good. I was able to kind of let go of the control of the kitchen and realize that I have the chance to build a business here.
Incredible. You're really starting to put your team together.
That's it.
So really
it
for you, the next challenge for you, you've got your product, is now growth, is managing growth.
Right, and we're working on our second location right now in Franklin Lakes, New Jersey. So we're about halfway through that, hopefully opening in May or June. But that's where it is now. We have such a good team in Montclair. My head now goes to how do you replicate that, right? I mean, it's tough.
So Jason, you've got things moving. It's happening. You've got a relationship now with the Caputo people, which puts you in a nice family of great American pizza operators, international pizza operators, but certainly here at Pizza Expo, if you're able to be at the Caputo booth and wearing the Caputo shirt, you're already in the elite crowd here of the show.
Just like I said, I mean, I consider myself no one in this industry. I consider myself more of a businessman.
But everybody
than a chef.
was no one at some time, and then they started, they built on their idea.
It's true, but still, I feel like there's so many people in this industry, and not that it's a bad thing at all. This is not a bad thing, but are more focused on their name and their personal growth and building the brand around them. And I'm just so not interested in that. I want people to remember Brick and Dough. I don't care if they ever know who created it, who's behind it. I want them to know the team that's running it every day, the chef that created the food. I still have creativity there, obviously, but
it's really
beyond
all about
me.
And the brand. The brand is bigger than you personally.
Absolutely.
Mark Dim from Marco's Coal Fire in Denver said the same thing earlier today in our interview with him. Is that with the people that he brings to work for him, and he's kept employees there for 20 years. It's the thing they have to get if they're going to work out there. Is they have to understand that it's protecting the brand of Marco's and living up to what it stands for. It's not about their personal glory.
And that's all it is. I, as a business owner, want to arrive at my business every day comfortable and loving my employees like their family, and having all my employees love each other like their family, having no negative relationships, and if there is bickering between two people, actually taking the time and caring and helping them work it out, and not just letting them wallow in that and have to work in an environment they're not comfortable in. Like, I want everyone who works in my restaurant to feel respected and actually want to come to work every
This
day.
is a theme that's emerging in a lot of the conversations we're having here at Expo, is a lot of these successful operators say the same thing.
Well,
they always attribute part of their success to being able to manage those personal relationships.
And part of it is not hard. And I've had restaurateurs who are way more successful than me and have been in this industry for many more years than me come to me recently, and like, how do you retain these employees? Like, what are you paying your bussers, your dishwashers? And I tell them, and sometimes they're shocked. And the narrative out there today that I keep hearing is no one wants to work. It's so hard to find people. Oh, how is it with your staff? And I'm like, it's great. I know how to take care of them. If it's keeping a little more money out of your pocket, it's way better than a revolving door of staff.
Absolutely.
Who you don't know if are going to show up the next day.
Not everybody gets that right away, but if they're going to survive, they have to get that lesson at some point.
You just got to treat them like people. That's what it is.
Well, this has really been fascinating, and I'm so excited to hear about you guys. Can't wait to get to Montclair now. I want to get some donuts from what used to be Montclair bread, but now what did you say it's called now?
It's called Rabble Rise Donuts.
Rabble Rise.
Rachel does a great job.
Yeah, Rachel
there. And
Lyman.
then you can do a little trifecta. You start early, you get some donuts. Then there's a new bagel shop that opened up to us called Harvey's Hand Roll.
All right.
Yeah, guys doing phenomenal New York style bagels, and then you come to us for lunch.
Yeah, then it comes lunch and maybe some takeout for dinner. Yeah.
Exactly.
And Ian, I'm really excited to hear about this side of the business that you're building up. What's your last name?
Fine, Ian Fine.
Ian Fine.
Yeah.
So I want to thank Ian Fine for being with us, and Jason Rosenthal from again, Brick and Dough is the brand, is the name of the restaurant.
Yep.
Is this dough when people are trying to find if they want to purchase this for their own operation? Is it going to be under the Brick and Dough label or a new brand?
Yeah, it's going to be under the Real Fine Foods label.
Real Fine Foods.
Real Fine Foods is the brand. We actually, right now we are direct to, we're food services. So the only places you could find our product are a handful of our customers, Brick and Dough, Prince Street Pizza, Yankee Stadium, and a couple others.
As a finished top product, our goal obviously is to get this into all the main distributors for us to turn into salespeople so that we can, walk into a random pizzeria in Nebraska, sell them on the product, and then get it into their distributor. So we want this all over the country.
I gotcha.
The wave is we find our manufacturing facility that can make it at bulk, and then we go sell this to as many pizzerias and restaurants as possible. And then I think wave 2 is once we have some built-in credibility and people love our product, we go build a brand and sell it at retail.
Well, you heard it here first, right? We got Real Fine Foods. Nobody knows this yet, but look for it at Yankee Stadium and it's pretty soon probably everywhere. If you're interested in trying to get some for your own operation, for those of you who are operators listening, contact Jason or Ian.
Reach out to us. Yeah, Ian or Jason at realfinefoods.com.
Realfinefoods.com. And if you can't remember that, then remember Brick and Dough and track them down there in Montclair, New Jersey.
Yeah.
So best of success. Congratulations on all that you've accomplished in reasonably short amount of time in this world, know. And also congratulations on making that great pivot during the COVID, for having opened at possibly the worst time to open a restaurant.
Definitely.
And then turning it around and finding the silver lining in all of this. So great work.
At the end of the day, we're doing what we love to do. So when you're doing that, it makes it all a lot easier.
Well said. Thank you for being on Pizza Quest, and
of course.
thank you all for listening.
Thanks for having us.
And
Awesome.
we'll see all of you at the next episode of Pizza Quest. Join us then. Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of Pizza Quest. A number of the conversations you will hear this season were recorded over a 2-day period during the 2023 International Pizza Expo held in Las Vegas, Nevada. These recordings would not have been possible without the help of many people and our generous underwriters, but I'd like to take a moment now to especially thank some of the unsung heroes. My Pizza Quest partners, Jeff Michael and Brad English, our HRN recording producer, Liam Werner, as well as HRN's Matt Patterson and Joanna Garnett-Reipold, and also Alexander Mortati of Orlando Foods, who organized and coordinated the schedules of many of our guests to get them to our recording table throughout the expo. Thank you to all of you. Pizza Quest is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.